All right, we're back here at Nerd Rage. We're playing Lacey today, and of course, we have a Life from the Loam mirror. So, round one isn't quite over with yet, but while those players are trying to figure out who's going to get decked first, we've got Julian Knab here still, and so Julian is our one of our few international guests that we have here occasionally on the show, and so here in America, where probably the bulk of our viewers live. Vaccinations are progressing. Things are starting to open up a little bit. I'm starting to see people indoors in some restaurants. I think we're probably still a little ways away from, actually a ways away from large Magic events, but certainly I wouldn't be surprised if there are some local stores that have started at least putting out feelers to their players on when you feel comfortable coming back. And so I think that's probably by early summer, I think some local stores will be up and running again. Julian, in Germany, how are things looking there as far as Magic? Like, you have obviously you're not going to know anything solid, but what's your feeling for how things are going to play out?
I think we're still at least a couple of months away from actual in-store play returning. Stores are already trying to make stuff happen, and I mean the entire pandemic, right? They have given us so much infrastructure that we can work with, whether it's webcam play or MTG media tournaments that we are doing here, and from what I know, the shops I talked to, they're already looking forward to it, but it's still going to be a couple of months because our vaccination effort isn't the greatest. And we are hoping to get most people vaccinated by sometime in late summer. And I think once we get there, at the very latest, it's going to return. Probably like not these big, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, 60 people events, but FNM. I could see FNM coming back at some point in a couple of months.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easier to trust the people that are local than just, a whole nationwide of people to just be ready and handling things. The how would you characterize as we just kind of stray off topic for Magic here a little bit, I would say the response here is fairly mixed as to how things are playing out, like on a national level from the government, kind of like the vaccination process. Like we're definitely seeing progress. I think where I live, in 2 weeks, anyone can now start getting vaccinated from 2 weeks from now. So that's exciting, although the age range or the kind of, I'm at the last no priority type of person, and that's going to take a long time to get going. Like, where are you guys at as far as like you and I are pretty much in the same persona, probably approximately the same age and lifestyle. Like, what's the vaccination outlook for you personally? Like, are you looking at end of this? You even know?
So officially in Germany, we are still prioritizing people who are type or at least top priority, which is basically anyone aged 80 or has like some serious disease that requires it. And on top of that, we are vaccinating people working in critical positions, like, in hospitals and stuff. I think we recently did kindergarten and school teachers, but I think we're not quite finished with that yet. So that's where we officially are. But just this week, actually, we started basically your personal doctor, whoever you see like locally, whenever you have something, they get 20 doses per week now. So they are kind of free to decide which of my patients actually needs it the most. And that's, for example, how my parents, or at least my dad already got it. And in Germany, there's lots of criticism for the way we've rolled out the vaccination yet. Honestly, like probably for a reason. But just this week now with local doctors starting to vaccinate people outside of vaccination centers, I'm pretty sure that it's gonna get much better in the next 4 weeks or something.
That's cool. That's good. It's moving along in different places, different rates, but that's cool. Like, kind of the world is getting there eventually. But okay, so that's good for real talk. Now back to the Magic fantasy world that we all live in. We've got another kind of fringy deck list that we're gonna have Julian look at here. We have one of the more surprising ones that I pulled out because there's tribal, elves. Occasionally you see merfolk. Maybe you see zombies, goblins. Here we have tribal giants that actually 5-0'd an event or a league and qualified. So how is this possible?
Oh, dude, I think I've seen this deck list before. I thought it was kind of like a meme, but now you tell me it actually 5-0'd. So it's probably a little more than that. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know exactly what all of the giants do, but I know that they hit pretty hard. And I think there's one of them that actually doubles all your giant damage or something. So,
Yes.
I mean, we got the core elements of all the Stompy list. We have Chalices, we have Blood Moons, we have Trinity Spheres, we have the Soul Lands, and in this case also the Spirit Guides and the Chromoxen. So we can accelerate out stuff really quickly. And we even have I almost want to call it like flexibility of having a removal spell and Bone Crusher Giant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of nice that the deck stops almost at 4 at the top end. Then we have the Quakebringer at 5. But I guess we can also fortile that for 4. So the deck can actually get something down really quickly. And it's geared towards bringing the beats, right? It's not trying to play this game where you maybe get like a Planeswalker down. Yeah. And yeah, that's just been my impression of it. This is like Murfolk, but big.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about the Stompy shell, we're talking about Chalice of the Void, Trinisphere, the lock pieces. If this, there are 8 Kaldheim cards in this deck. If this can win a league, then this engine, I feel like, has untapped potential, because we've got to be able to do better than this, I would think. And yet here we are. So applause to whoever was piloting this, and also the rest of the community. One, how did you let this happen? And two, why are we not upgrading this shell and playing? I mean, I guess these red Stompy Prison decks have always had kind of weird cards in them, but I feel like this is pushing it even a little bit far. Crystalline Giant, I mean, that thing takes like 5 turns before it's relevant, and yet there it is. Anyway,
yeah, honestly, I think Crystalline Giant is probably one of the best creatures in the deck.
But that's probably true, and that's insane. But yeah, anyway, this is more in fun, but this is fringe stuff. This is, if you're considering getting the Legacy and you're like, I don't know where to start wherever you want. Mono Red Giant Prison took down a league, so there you go. Anyway, that's all in fun, but it did. This is not an April Fool's thing. This deck actually won a league. So back to us, and just let you know what the players are playing for today. There are $2,000 in prizes on the line, as you can see the breakdown right there. And the top 8 players also receive sleeves from KMC, and we just found out this morning that we are actually sending out new sleeves that aren't currently on the market. They are KMC Hyper Phoenix, which is a new, I don't know what you call them, a new build, a new product from KMC. So hopefully the top 8 players enjoy those, and hopefully those of you watching will get back to being able to play Paper Magic at some point this year, and maybe KMC Hyper Phoenixes would interest you, or maybe you want to order them to play your EDH game against your neighbor. Anyway, I can't believe I said EDH, because I don't think anyone uses that term anymore. It's all Commander now, isn't it?
Is it out of fashion?
All right, so round 1 has now officially ended, and we're pairing up round 2. So we have identified what the problem was with the deck list in round 1. It has to do with the source of the card images. So that sounds like that's in progress and being fixed up. I don't know if it'll happen for round 2 or not, but we will have deck lists rolling at some point. We do have our feature match chosen. If the deck lists are available, let's go ahead and put them up. If they are not, then Julian and I will just sit here and look handsome while we wait for the round to pop up. We're going to be watching Adam Wallace playing Blue White Control against Tom Tracy playing Temur Delver. So we talked about, a little bit in the intro, how Temur Delver, or Delver in general, there's a lot of varieties out there. And control decks also, there's some variety. Like we just saw in the second match in round 1, Marcus Ewald with the, card advantage Pyroblast shell versus the Bant Mentor with Veil of Summer shell. There's definitely options. There's probably also other control decks that are viable. I imagine some. I know I've played against some Hymn to Turox in blue control decks this week, which is as unpleasant as it's always been. But
I mean, the card, it was kind of pretty much gone, right? When your opponent plays a turn 2 Dreaded Arcanist, if that's your answer, the card advantage doesn't even matter all that much anymore. And now it's coming back into the format, even though it probably still hurts if you hit Uro with it, because that's the last card you actually want to hit there. But the card has kind of a spot in the meta game again.
Yeah, and there's a variety of combo decks out there. Although I feel like one of the most brutal combo decks now that we're seeing in the format is Doomsday, which they have managed to be a fast combo deck that doesn't have to devote their whole deck list to the combo. So there's versions with like Force of Wills and Dazes or Thoughtseizes, and I mean, how is that fair? It's super irritating.
Yeah, it's one of the decks where I felt if I had the time to really learn a deck and pick it up after the bans, that would be the deck that I wanted to go into, because it's going to be so interesting. We already talked about the return of paper Magic at some point and even like bigger events. I think if the new Doomsday hits the paper meta game, and I mean that's going to have a lot of people who didn't really get to play a lot during the last 12 months. That's gonna hit like a truck, and I want to be the truck. that's basically what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I played probably about 10 years ago when I was fair. There is a copy of Doomsday. If you're unfamiliar with the card, you can read the card. There's a lot of text. You can read it half a dozen times, and you'll still be under the time it actually takes to resolve one. But that's a card that when I was first getting into Legacy, I tried playing Doomsday, and I had a cheat sheet, which was more like a cheat notebook of potential Doomsday piles for different scenarios based on what resources you have. And it was so much to keep track of because it's not nearly as elegant as it is today. It was a Tendrils of Agony kill versus now we're using Thassa's Oracle. And it's, I feel like that's one of the things that's kind of made the deck more popular now is you don't have to waste brain power on how your kill works. You just have to get things set up, and it's not as easy as like show and tell into Emrakul, but you can use more of your brain power and more of your deck list to protect yourself now than in the past.
Yeah, we're in a pretty unique spot in Legacy right now where a lot of people actually think that the same deck is the best deck in both Vintage and Legacy because it's also made big waves in Vintage. So I think Doomsday, as you already described, right, you don't have to put all these, I don't know, dozens of different scenarios into your head and try to find solutions for that. You really have your standard pile and then a couple of variations of that. And it's so hard to actually hate that deck because even when we had Laboratory Maniac, which already made the deck a little bit easier, you still had to play around, removal. Here you literally have a trigger that wins you the game, and that's why we see cards like Torpor Orb, which we saw on the sideboard of the Giants deck just a moment ago. It's not easy to fight over the Doomsday because even Surgical Extraction messing up their pile doesn't do too much because in the end there's going to be a Cavern of Souls and then a basic island in play, and that's all she wrote unless you have maybe Stifle. But
but we're not watching that this round. It sounds like our players are ready, so let's go ahead and bring up the match as we're still struggling with the deck list. We'll try and get that rolling. I know behind the scenes Max Con and Norman are working on it, but we're going to see blue-white mid-range against Temur Delver. So if that's ready to go, let's bring us in. Okay, and sounds like that's not quite ready to go yet. So once again, I'm the fool. But so for now, I personally don't have great knowledge or even minimal knowledge of the Vintage metagame. So while we have a moment here, like what? You actually pay attention to Vintage? What goes on in Vintage right now? I don't really have a good feel for it.
Well, I played it quite a lot, actually, when the Eternal Weekend was going on by the end of last year. So I got kind of a glimpse of that. And from the Vintage streamers I follow, it often seems that Doomsday is probably the best deck right now. And other than that, you're just trying to resolve Ancestral Recall. Because Dread Arcanist is still a thing. You can flash that back with that thing. And that's what's going on. There's Buck. Buck midrange is probably also one of the very best decks in the format. But I don't really want to label myself a Vintage expert. I'm just a guy who heard that Doomsday is really good there. And it doesn't surprise me because when I played against it, I got completely wrecked by it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ancestral Recall has always been a big card, and somehow Ancestral Recall did not get reprinted into Historic, although it feels like half of the rest of Legacy and Vintage did. I just looked at this last night at these, I think it's called Mystical some kind of archive of the cards from Strixhaven that are in the packs that are not standard legal, but they are going to be in Historic, and there are so many cards on this list that do not seem like they should be in friendly formats. What is going on? Is this like, I saw Dark Rituals on the list. I saw Demonic Tutor. There, I think Swords of Plowshares on the list. These cards are all historically.
Wasn't there Mind's Desire?
Yeah, there was. Mind's Desire isn't
Like, what's
historic.
going on?
Mind's Desire is on Arena. How is this possible? I feel like I must have been. Maybe this was also April Fool's. I'm not sure what if a joke is being played on me here, but it seems like these cards are legal and historic.
Yeah,
All
it just
right.
caused a huge type, right? At least from what I've seen, lots of people have been actually talking about the format, have been brewing in the format, and I think partially because of all the awesome cards that were introduced. So I wonder what their long-term plan for Historic is, because if that's gonna turn out to be the quote-unquote eternal format for Arena, that's definitely gonna draw a lot of people in.
Yeah. Okay, so we had there was a problem with the coverage of the matchup that we talked about. So instead, we have Will Krueger again playing Elves versus Marc Eric Vogt playing 4-color Omnath. How did I do on that pronunciation there?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Yeah.
That's spot on, pretty much.
All right. So, let's see here. It looks like we're jumping in turn 3. So sorry you missed a couple turns there, as the initially chosen feature match had issues, but we're in round 2 of 6 here. I'm Lossett here with Julian Knab at Nerd Rage Gaming, and we're in Legacy, and we're in Will Krueger's Mind here, and he's got a Cradle, he's got some mana, and he's got some options.
Yeah, you could try to go for the ultimate quote unquote on the Shepherd here, but oh yeah, we're already in a Glimpse Chain. Okay, yeah, let's go for that then. It's gonna be pretty rough for Marc to really put something together. I'm not super familiar with the decklist of the 4-color Omnath. I talked to him a couple of days ago, and he basically explained it to me that it's disruption and ramp, and then the very end you win with Field of the Dead, which of course as a total game plan is horrible against Elves, right? If your game plan is disruption into Field of the Dead against Elves, you're probably not gonna win. But usually, the way I know Marc, he really covers all his bases once the sideboarding comes up.
Yeah. Okay, so he's got 6 cards in hand. So presumably there is some sort of interaction, as long as it's not all counters, since the Allosaurus Shepherd is handling that aspect of things. That card has been quite a boon for the Legacy deck, for the Elf decks.
Yeah, it's at the point where I think it actually changed the gameplay of Elves quite a lot, because especially in the first game against, any kind of blue decks, when they're tapped out and you have to win, you don't even have to think about whether you should still consider making a play that advances your board and then try to go for the win later on. It's, in a way, it's giving you perfect information that doesn't always feel great for the opponent, and also, if I'm honest, from myself, but it is what it is right now, and Shepherd has probably been the best card for Elves ever since Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, it's certainly been strong. As we see, the Glimpse Chain there kind of fizzles out a little bit, but Will has certainly built a significant board advantage for himself. Whether that holds up against whatever Marc Vogt has rolling here. The fact that there's an Omnath. Sorry, go ahead.
That's the Tri-Land. I was just wondering why the land is coming into play tapped, but yeah.
Right, yeah, the
That's
Triumph.
a cute new choice.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see it in Legacy a little bit, but I was surprised how useful they were in Modern as a fixer in a 3-color deck that you can fetch for. But yeah, sure, we'll play it in Legacy too. Why not? If you got to do something. Apparently even old school real dual lands aren't quite enough to cast Omnath on curve, so we need the Tri-Lands to make that happen.
Yeah, the thing is, what is Omnath really going to do for you here anyway, if you get to that point? Marc is fetching, which makes me think he wants to cast something for 4, or just digging. Okay, yeah, okay. That makes sense too.
So it looked like that cantrip was put back on top of the deck and is now redrawn. And
yeah, I think you're basically dead here already, because even if you find a Swords to Plowshares, you can't get rid of the Shepherd because of the Viravot Symbiote. And then just comes down, ultimates, and you hit. You've got 2 blockers, so you're guaranteed to be hit for 15 plus 2, 70. Yeah, I think there's literally no card in Legacy that would save Marc right now here. I guess Angel's Grace, if you want to count that.
How about Stifle on the Allosaurus trigger?
Yeah,
that would do it.
If you were to play Stifle, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good
All
one.
right,
I was
so
gonna say let me just do it again, but actually we can't.
you heard it here. Julian Knab, closed-minded, not thinking through the options, as he doesn't recognize the fact that Stifle, a card not probably in the deck list, would stop things. Sounds like deck lists are now available. So let's go ahead and look at both of them if we have time. But if we only have time for one, let's look at Marc, Eric, Vogt. So here we go. There is Tamiyo in this deck. There are a set of Uros. There's only actually one Omnath. Do we have a tutor for that?
I think we just naturally draw into it. That doesn't really look like it.
All right, so we're naming our decks after singletons. That's fine. It is a significant card in the deck, so okay, I'll live with it. This is this is a mid-range, control deck. This is a lot going on in this deck.
I also like that Marc told me that this deck is basically a ramp deck when his only proper ramp spell is Growth Spiral. I guess you could count Uro as a ramp spell. That's like the 3-mana ramp and growth, kinda. Not really.
But I mean, hey, it does have one whole copy of Growth Spiral. So sure, it's got a ramp deck. Wait, it has a Primeval Titan. That's a ramp card in some respects. This is
you know what? The more I look at this deck list, the more I think this deck can never ever win the first game against Elves. So let's see what he's actually got the sideboard for that.
All right. Well, let's see. Pyroclasm. I mean, that's a good start.
Double Pyroclasm, Hybreacher, Tabernacle. I mean, if you have Wastelands, the Tabernacle can do something. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's what you're gonna be bringing in. Maybe crop rotations as well. Yeah. Okay, now that's interesting. Crop rotations. I don't know how much he wants the Tabernacle. How if he's gonna be willing to give up a card for it. Usually you would think the crop rotation comes in against decks with Wastelands, but that's not exactly exciting too.
All right, so we're kind of digesting this. Do we have the Will's Elf deck that we can put back up on the screen? There it is. So not too surprising, there's no way to deal with land. So the Tabernacle is going to be a nuisance if it resolves or if it gets tutored for. Although Gaia's Cradle does cleanly handle it.
Oh, this is literally what I played recently. I mean, he probably it doesn't take much to come up with the same kind of list because there's only a few decisions to be made. But yeah, I'm happy to see this list in action because I'm very confident about this list being written.
Don't be modest. I'm sure he actually copied your list. All right, so we see game 2 kick off here. Marc, Eric, Vogt on the play with a full hand. Will Krueger down 1 card. If you do want to look at the deck list for yourself at some point, you can type in !deck lists or !decks in the chat to find a link to them for yourself. And we see here Will's 6-card hand. Okay. Doesn't look terrible. It looks playable.
Yeah, it looks pretty decent. You have to make a decision whether you want to accelerate here because the Senate, with the Cradle and the Heritage Steward in hand, I would rather turn the Senate into a Visionary because I already have the Symbiote down as well, and I can already do that pretty quickly. I still need to find a third elf basically to turn on the Heritage Steward next turn, but I wouldn't really put too much thought into that anyway because I'd very much expect that Marc is going to break up any kind of 3-mana 3 elves configuration that I'm going to try to assemble here. And if he doesn't, I would think that he's probably has Pyroclasm going on. But for the overall strategy in the matchup, I would very much rely on Progenitors here. From the glimpse that we've seen of Marc's deck list, it didn't really look like he's got great outs against Progenitors other than maybe trying to, quote-unquote, race it with Uro, which is going to be pretty rough. So yeah. I'd be very happy to just, trade 1-for-1 until eventually Marc won't be able to counter Natural Order.
Okay, so a second ponder here for Marc. Fetching first to clean off the first one and then leaving the Tundra untapped as there are probably many more interactive white cards in the deck than red, especially at 1 mana, as we're playing Swords of Plashers and not Lightning Bolt. And by we, I mean Marc, Eric, Vogt.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. This turn and the way okay. That's really good. So now we can really assemble anything we want, assuming that Marc doesn't have the Swords of Plowshares, of course.
So Carpet of Flowers, the draw here, which both Julian and I are reacting to, this is going to be worth 2 mana during the second main for Will, so it's just going to accelerate 1 this turn. But it is free, and going forward, it is going to produce quite a bit of mana, as there are probably not too many non-islands in Marc's deck.
Yeah, and the beauty of the Carpet of Flowers here is, as you mentioned, it produces basically +1 mana on this turn, and that's all we were looking for. That's why I mentioned earlier that I really want to draw a 1 mana elf here, because now I can actually run out the Heritage Druid and or rather, Will can do that. I'm very invested in this game, actually. And then we can run out both creatures, drop the Cradle, and send it for Visionary, which is going to give us an extra card draw. Then we tap the 3 elves, bounce it, and replay it for another card draw. And at that point, Marc really needs to find his Pyroclasms, because then things are going to spin out of control. Okay, but we're playing it, conservatively. Okay, I guess we were kind of almost trying to trade our Violet Symbiote for, Swords to Plowshares on the Shepherd. Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it, because that kind of gives us the information that there's probably no Swords to Plowshares, and we can play a little bit of a slower game and are not as all in as we would have otherwise been.
So for people watching along, the alternative was that make sure I'm right about this, is Will could have played the Carpet of Flowers off just the Bayou and then gone second main and had Cradle plus the Carpet mana together, right? That's what we're talking about here?
Yeah, exactly.
That would have given the most mana. And there is the Swords of Plowshares to pick off the Symbiote, so the explosion wasn't likely to amount to a whole lot anyway, but you are correct that Will's board is not as developed as it probably could be right now.
Yeah, but Marc also, he doesn't really know what's going on Will's side of the board. Like, if I was Marc and I didn't really see a crazy explosion despite the Carpet of Flowers in the Cradle, I would think there might be something like a Natural Order coming up. And in that case, you gotta represent something, right? He is possibly representing, I think we didn't see Containment Priest, but still Snapcaster Mage into Swords to Plowshares. If he has that, or just straight up Swords to Plowshares. But now we're, I guess, just drawing a card here. Could also be an Ooze, but I'd not be a big fan of Ooze. That's just not where I want to be.
I mean, that would be disruptive. Marc could play around Ooze somewhat here by putting in Snapcaster Mage on Swords of Plowshares in response to the Zenith, but that's assuming a lot, including the fact that Marc actually having a Snapcaster Mage.
Okay, we get a look at the deck list here. Yeah, Progenitus did come in, not surprised, especially for Natural Orders. That's a really good place to be here. I guess we're just going to draw a card. Yeah, it's a Visionary. Yeah. And that card better be Violet Symbiote. That would be really sweet. Cradle. Land. Okay.
So yeah,
it's an awkward spot. If you don't have the Violet Symbiote, but you want to make full use of the Shepherd, then you gotta commit to the board. The other thing that sometimes comes up, and I think actually we could do that here. We could run out the Heritage Druid, not attack, and if a Pyroclasm comes down, then we just put 6 mana into the Shepherd, and we actually survive the Pyroclasm next turn. So that's a play that sometimes comes up for me.
That's interesting. That's good looking out. But we are seeing here, there is the 1-up Growth Spiral, thus confirming this being a ramp deck, even though it didn't drop land. So Will now knows, and we as viewers know, that Marc is sitting on 6 non-lands in hand, unless one is drawn for the turn, and that's it's fairly frightening. There is the Pyroclasm.
That's rough. Yeah, we could have actually avoided that by committing the Heritage Druid to the board, but of course, you don't always do that. There's reasons not to do it. Like if you want to set up for a potential Glimpse later on. Like if we draw Glimpse here, I think we're actually in a decent spot. But we got to draw something. Glimpse or Natural Order. We need Haymakers now, because the longer the game goes, the further things are going to be out of reach.
Right. So Will now more than willing to commit to the board, knowing there's only one more Pyroclasm in the deck, although the one in the graveyard potentially might find its way to be recast at some point, but there's really no options left. Will needs to do something, and is just going to commit. He still, if a Natural Order is drawn, there is still the fetch land for Arbor.
Yeah, and with the Carpet of Flowers, we're probably always going to have enough mana to do that. So Marc's also got to find something proactive, either a source of card advantage, like this one, for example.
Yeah.
Oh, and we're already conceding? No.
Well, so the reason that Will was thinking, like, with the Mystic Sanctuary putting the Pyroclasm on top, all the creatures are going to die again, and
true. But like you mentioned, we might be able to natural order here.
Right.
This is where we usually just draw progenitors.
See, and if you're playing the Brainstorm version, you'd be fine. Maybe a chain, a symbiote can find here, and there'll be a chain. I mean, there's potential that could happen, even though it's not looking good.
This is perfect. Dude, we're actually recovering here. We're drawing another card now. Like, Marc might actually force this if he has a force here. I think he was already wondering whether he should force the Visionary. I think you almost gotta snap off the force unless you're untapping. I mean, you're untapping into something really good, the Uro, but if you can untap into Uro while not having like the best friends combo of Visionary and Vibert Symbiote on the board, that's the spot you really want to be.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing from Marc's perspective, I imagine, to force the symbiote and not to force the Visionary, but obviously you don't know it's coming. And so the 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 does actually go through from the Visionary into the force, but it is pretty easy to recover from card disadvantage when you have Uro.
Also, I like how Marc actually taps the Triland and not the Tundra. I mean, he probably knows that there's no choke on the other side, but I mean, it's still good to have good mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now we have a ton of stuff we can draw here. Senate would be really good. Violet Symbiote would be really good. Natural Order, of course, would be really good. So that's at least something like 11 cards.
Oh no.
Nerd. Yeah, instant concession. Like, come on, I don't want to even live on this planet anymore.
So that evens up the match, and we'll have Will Krueger going first in game 3, or having choice in game 3. I don't know why I bother correcting myself, since obviously he's going to choose to go first, but may as well be technically correct as we're moving through this round here. Let's go ahead and look at, if we have a chance, let's go ahead and look at Marc's deck list again, and see. We saw the Pyroclasm come in and play a big role. We saw the Tabernacle, or I mean, we didn't see it, but we can assume it's in there. And yeah, it looks pretty clean. We're probably boarding out. What do you think? What cards do strike you as being poor here? I'm saying Tamiyo is not great.
Yeah, Tamiyo is not great. Primeval Titan is probably not even great. And I think you could even cut some Ice Fang Codals or something. I don't think they're too great.
Yeah, they're not trading for much value against opposing 1/1s. That's not really what they're there for. They're there for Death Shadows and Delvers and things like that. Okay, and then what does Will have? What does Will have if we have that up? All right, well, we're not going to get a chance to see that, so we'll just have to see it from the perspective of what Will draws. This is opening hand. I imagine you're pretty happy with this.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm okay with this. It doesn't have acceleration. I want to do something on the second turn that's really, really annoying for my opponent, and putting them into a position where they kind of have to force a fill. The Cradle is the saving grace here, pretty much, because the Cradle is going to allow us to have a really broken turn 3, and I would expect that just for the second turn, we're probably just going to run out like a creature or two, depending. Oh, okay, and now we draw the second Cradle. Yeah, there's a world where we. I can't imagine a world where we run out the Glimpse here, but the key here is to present enough that Marc is gonna feel threatened enough to try to fight over the Glimpse, and then we drop the second Cradle and Natural Order on the next turn. But that's gonna depend on what we draw and how the things play out from his turn. But from what I'm looking at here is I'm trying to get a 2-for-1 of forcing Marc to get rid of the Shepherd. On the next turn, and of course we can bounce the Shepherd, so that's the first 2-for-1, and then he can 2-for-1 himself again on the Force of Will on the Glimpse. But in order to make the Glimpse threatening enough, we have to present at least one more creature this turn for the Cradle to be turned on, and that's the delicate dance, right? And that's what makes Legacy so great.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so we are gonna go ahead and throw out a Glimpse, and from Will's perspective, probably hope this gets countered.
and it's never ever getting countered. Like Marc knows that 100% this is just a cycle glimpse because the Wild Symbiote can't tap with Virtual Rangers. So, I mean, I don't hate it. This basically means that we're trying to set up a pretty good natural order next turn, or even draw into something that's going to draw a counterspell. Because if next turn we drop a glimpse, then Marc will have to think twice about whether he's going to let that resolve, or at least 2-for-1 himself on the Shepherd. Okay. Oh, that's great. That's actually really great for us. That's basically what we wanted.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we cycle the glimpse. No card advantage there. We on the board with a Shepherd, and doesn't currently. Well, actually, I guess there is route to natural order next turn. Yeah, off Forest and then sacrifice a Cradle, and then if Progenitus comes out, maybe that's enough.
It's probably going to be enough, right? Because the only way I've ever seen Progenitus raised out of these kinds of decks is Uro, but we are still very far away from making Uro happen. I mean, unless I guess we have something like that. Even Growth Spiral doesn't get us there. It's still like a turn 3, turn 4 play. So if Marc taps out here, that's the big thing. If Marc taps out of white mana here, it's almost going to be over. Marc can't really afford to tap out of white here. And that's rough. That's really rough.
Okay.
Yeah, now we just run out everything we got and we natural order. Of course, you're not winning the game by just sitting on the Sylvan Library here, right? These are the kinds of plays that when you look back, you're like, damn, I wish I had done something differently, but you really shouldn't, because in the long run, you're winning more games by running out the Sylvan Library here.
So, I imagine now Will is looking to see just how likely it is that Progenitus can take down the game.
I wouldn't even hate just running out the Heritage Druid first. That still gives us 4 mana.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather keep the Wild Symbiote around. But I mean, you of course, if you draw into a glimpse, then you can do that. And eventually, I think we're just going to take the game there. Yeah,
this big, dumb Godzilla fire-breathing monster creature here, Progenitus, it does not appear that Marc-Eric Vogt has an answer to this. So... yeah, you talked about the slim chances of racing it between Uro and I guess Omnath can gain some life every turn also to help out, but these are all cards that cost 4 or more mana, and Progenitus is ready to rumble. Yeah, one of the ways that people can actually get rid of Progenitus that always scares me when there's no open deck list is a card like Council's Judgment, because if you think about it, if Council's Judgment comes down here, the game is already turned around, right? In that case, Marc is probably going to be the victor unless Will finds, I guess, a second copy of Natural Order and a couple more elves to present a Krata of Behemoth. But at this point, Marc is really smart. Marc is one of the smartest people I've ever talked to in Magic. And if he hasn't conceded yet, then he probably must have some kind of plan left. But unless it's Uro right now, I can almost not see anything happening. He's probably thinking about how to stack the cards on the Sylvan Library. Now Will's back to the deck list again. Wait, do you actually have an answer to this? What's going on? I thought this was going to end it. And Sylvan Library still. So maybe there's if Marc has an Uro in hand, then maybe the debate is to whether he can live 2 turns with the gaining 3 life and then not taking any Sylvan Library damage, but the attacking Allosaurus Shepherd should remove that question potentially. And it's also unlikely Marc can develop a whole game without breaking a fetch line at some point. Yeah. Yeah, we're looking at the decklist again. We're like, is there anything? Omnath, Primeval Titan, Uro. Yeah. Progenitus still decent. I suppose Tabernacle plus Wasteland could severely limit Will's ability to do things, but if Will ever makes the mistake of passing the turn without a land in play because he had bounced the Forest for Aquarian Ranger, which is one of the ways he could actually lose the game. Sure. Yeah, but it's gonna be really rough. Wouldn't that be something? Will bounces the Forest. You guys have highlight reels. It's definitely gonna go in there. Bounce the Forest with Aquarian Ranger, get Wastelanded, crop rotate into Tabernacle, kill Progenitus. All right, we're still gonna see Uro. So Marc will rise to 16. Maybe, let's see. So we're incoming for 11. 5. I'm trying to think of ways that like if Omnath into bring back Uro, maybe that gains enough life to survive another turn, or Omnath plus fetch land on both turns to gain 8. Maybe.
I was wondering whether there's like a scenario where you have Uro and then you start to plowshares your own Uro to get another turn.
Sure.
And then eventually, like you have a combo turn of sorts where you go for Primeval Titan and get a bunch of, what are they called, Fields of the Dead into play to make just enough tokens to win in a single Alpha Strike. But that's so far out, and I can't even see that happening ever.
Yeah, that seems very unlikely. But like you were saying, Marc is if there's a way to puzzle this out, maybe Marc will find it. In the meantime, Will is trying to figure out, which of his cards are elves. At the party they're gonna have after the tournament, who's not invited. Scavenging is not being an elf. Progenita's not an elf, but Progenita's probably earning his seat at the table.
Yeah, I think at this point you kind of just want to put enough pressure into play to shorten any kind of clock that Marc might have here. And you can't really get to 4 mana anyway, so you can't send it for an ooze and take away the Uro. But at this point, it looks like we're just either drawing an extra card or getting Scavenging Ooze. I think both are fine options. Honestly, I would rather draw an extra card, yeah. Mm-hmm. Because the extra card drawn is going to give you access to potentially, a natural order, which might be able to close the game out even a turn earlier. Yeah. And from this point on, even if Marc somehow manages to, stay alive against the Progenitors, then he's still dealing with Wild Symbiote plus Elfish Visionary, drawing 3 cards over 1 turn cycle. And not even Sylvan Library is good enough to keep up with that, especially once your life total is under so much pressure.
Yeah, this is certainly battling against a steep uphill climb here for Marc-Eric Vogt. And as we checked, and as Will continues to check, looking for what potential answers there do not seem to be any. So life gain is the answer, and it's asking a lot to gain 10 life a turn. Okay, there is the Omnath. This can potentially gain 8, and it will. So this will buy another turn.
That would really be something. If we get Primeval Titan going, that also triggers Omnath, right? So we can use Primeval Titan to gain like 8 again.
Sure. Yeah, we can gain.
And then Primeval Titan can attack and gain 8 again. And if we somehow find extra life to gain, like if we can gain more than 10 life a turn, which we can with Uro, I guess, then
with Uro, I guess, yeah. I guess Uro trigger plus fetch land plus crack the fetch land. That's a total of 11 life a turn. That could keep up. At that rate, you'll gain life. You could start drawing cards off Sylvan Library too, no problem. All right, so Will looking here at just drawing now. The elves are assembled their squad here to start doing their thing, drawing cards with Symbiote Visionary, just in case Progenitus isn't enough.
I'm actually excited. I mean, if we riff on this draw and it's not natural order, or I think Senate would also win the game here, then it's natural, of course. Luck of the Elves.
I was looking forward to Marc getting a chance to actually get out of this, even if it's unlikely. And this is probably gonna end it. No, there's a force. All right.
Okay, that's a force. We get to play Magic.
Still in it. Marc-Eric Vogt says, no, we are not done yet.
It would be amazing if you could use a growth spiral at some point to just stay alive when Will thought, the game is over, and then we just it's growth spiral an instant. I've never run to the card.
All right. So you said what about growth spiral?
I was wondering whether it's an instant, because then you could actually at some point. Oh yeah, then could actually if you have a lethal Progenitus attack, and then Marc only stays alive by using that would be the best.
Mm-hmm.
After we already joked about growth spiral, the best life gain spell in the deck.
So, Marc, obviously we're not drawing ourselves a library here, but important that things get set up correctly. There is mana leaving out the plains to bring back the Uro. And then Marc would need that put Marc to 5, and then a land drop to 9, and then if it's a fetch land, then fetch to 8 and go to 12. So that's with 2.
So basically, every fetch land is like +7 life, right? The way I see it.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you're limited on just the limiting factors. You can only do it once a turn cycle. You can't double up. And I actually am now worried that even if Marc is able to go Uro plus the lands, Uro to 5, land to 9, fetch to 8 on the opposing turn, and then land to 12 with 2 blockers. Oh yeah, no, Marc would go to 1. He can currently handle the board for a turn if there's a fetch land here. This is ridiculous.
This is absolutely ridiculous.
That is not a fetch land, but there's still a land drop for the turn.
The thing is, though, eventually Marc might actually run out of cards, at which point, or lands rather, at which point he would probably like need to consider wastelanding himself and life from the loaming lands back just to get additional lands.
Yeah, sure, of course. Okay. Okay, a crop rotation would also do it. Crop rotation on Will's turn would also gain 4 life.
Oh, this is amazing.
This is a crop rotation on Marc's turn, so this will make mana. So this has to be getting a fetch land, I believe.
I mean, you could get Tabernacle, but it's probably hurting yourself even more than the opponent.
Well, we can't get Tabernacle here because we need a land drop on Will's turn to gain 4 life to survive the Progenitus.
Oh, true.
So we have to be getting a fetch land here, I think. It'll also, well, whatever land we get, whether it's Tabernacle or something else, we'll generate 4 mana. So if Marc has a Planeswalker to drop here, that would be great. That would maybe divert the Progenitus for a turn. Will would actually have to make a hard choice because right now Marc is having to make all the hard choices, and Will just has to turn Progenitus sideways each turn.
So what actually happens on the third land drop for Omnath? It deals 4 damage to
it's
each
4
opponent.
It's 4 damage to your opponent and each of their Planeswalkers. So that's not going to matter too much yet, but who knows? If Uro starts cracking in, then I don't know. Certainly we've gotten more enjoyment out of this game than it looked like we were going to see a few turns, like 5 minutes ago.
I wonder if Primeval Titan is still in the deck, because if it is, I eventually want to see it come down and gain even more life.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a potential for next turn. Will is probably sitting there thinking, like, how is this match not over? I got the Progenitus. It's still alive. My opponent is just fighting me off with life gain in Legacy. Is that the new tech in Legacy? Is just to gain life? That's
something actually we talked about on my podcast. I think a couple months ago, that life gain is the best it's ever been in Legacy. And yeah, I mean, it's not because of Progenitus, but this is working out really well. Marc's life gain ramp deck destroying a Progenitus right now. I mean, if it actually comes to that.
If it comes to that, yeah, this match is going to go on the highlight reel. This would be really something. Okay, Brainstorm is finished resolving. We've got 3 mana still floating. That all goes to waste. And okay, we've got the bouncing of the Elvish Visionary, which means the attack for 1 that Will had available, which would have cost him half his board and not been realistic in the first place, is off the table. So it does look like Marc now has that's unfortunate. Burns off the Force of Will, and Will draws a second Visionary for the turn. Okay, at least the Glimpse doesn't do much, and all that's left is to get in there with Progenitus.
The Glimpse is going to be pretty good next turn, I would think. That's probably one of the ways that Will can actually take the game in one big swoop. Just get in there with 2 more Crowd of Behemoth and Progenitus, because that's just like way too much damage, and Marc could not get enough lands to play. But I'm so excited to see Marc's next turn, because knowing Marc, he probably already has like a plan very well teched out for what exactly he wants to do. He probably already knows how he actually wants to win the game in the long run. Maybe even some kind of Field of the Dead plan we talked about earlier, or one of the more obscure planeswalkers he still has left in the deck if they are still there.
All right, so we have the fetch here, resolving. Marc gains 4 life, goes to 11, takes 10, goes to 1. And then this turn, we're looking at Sylvan Library activation again, and a fresh top 3 cards. Uro will be able to attack and pick up 3 more life and a card. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm eager to just kind of see how this plays out.
I wonder. Yeah, I guess Uro's gotta get in there because getting the 3 life in the card is better than just blocking a creature.
Yeah, well, because with the Omnath being able to potentially gain 8, that's not enough to survive. So the Uro is going to have to attack.
I mean, there's Growth Spiral.
That's true.
But Omnath only triggers once per turn. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the life gain at least.
Yeah. So we're despite the wonders of there's a life from loam, just guarantees the land drops for the rest of the game. Marc having to be very careful here, as any minor slip up will end the game. On the other hand, he has to do a lot of work also to not get killed. And
yeah, Will also has to run the numbers, right? Will has to actually wonder whether he should keep the Visionary in play to present enough damage next turn to maybe just take down Marc, or whether he should bounce it. And we are finding, okay, now it's starting to become real. We have started finding more creatures.
So, that's right. That was the Dread drop off of the Uro. So that gained the life. Now, we're still going to need, as from Marc's perspective, we're going to need either a fetch land, the Growth Spiral, or a crop rotation to get through the next turn. There is the fetch land. This is all right. I'm kind of excited now. I mean, I as commentators, we should try and be not biased here. And usually the default, even by accident, is to kind of be in favor of the player that we're watching the perspective of. But I am very much hoping that Marc can make some magic happen here. This is really neat. And
yeah, I'm very much biased in favor of an awesome game. And I think that we're already watching one of those now.
Green Sun Zenith, though. This is
I mean, if we have to, we can also Swords to Plowshares one of our own creatures if it comes to that.
Yeah, this is scary, though. There's a lot. Will has a lot going on now.
Yeah. If I was Marc, I really want to counter this, but then again, we could also just die to another Natural Order. Maybe he just counters the Visionary. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I think. Actually, no, we can send it for a Nettle Sentinel. And then have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we have enough here if we want to. If we want a Kratos, we can. The question is whether it's going to resolve. So basically, you get an elf. I mean, the best play probably is to get an Allosaurus Shepherd of this, and then tap your 3 elves, drop the Cradle, get 8 mana, and get the Kratos out, and then Marc needs a Swords to Plowshares and counter magic. That's pretty rough.
All right, Zenith resolves, and Will is on board with the plan. Finds Allosaurus Shepherd. Craterhoof, and a card.
And this could be it. I think Marc has how many cards? 2 cards in hand, which is probably. I guess he could. No, even that wouldn't work.
Yeah, if there was a counter, I feel like it would have already been used somewhere. And here we are for the death blow. And that will do it. Will Krueger wins a match that was probably much more hair-raising than he expected, given that I don't know how many times I've seen a Progenitus attack 3 or 4 times and not end the game.
Life gain, like you said, one of the best aspects of Magic right now. We should all be gaining much more life.
Yeah, Healing Salve, underrated. So
I put 5 copies in my first deck. I gotta admit it here. Back in school when we played 100 card decks, we just put everything in, and I think I had 5 Healing Salve because the card is obviously the best thing to do.
Yeah, I mean it's one. Yeah, it's the same as a reverse Lightning Bolt. If Lightning Bolt's good, Healing Salve has to be good. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that match. If you're watching along and you're new to the channel, hit the follow button. We passed 9,000 followers just recently, so now we're on the way to 10. There's always some other milestone to hit in the future. Let's go ahead and bring up the slide for the next event. We are going back to Modern on May 2nd for our next event. Same stakes, prizes, entry fee as today. So hopefully you'll join us then, either as a player or a viewer. That is May 2nd, beginning of next month for 4.5 weeks from now. So hopefully you'll check that out. In the meantime, here we're playing, I don't know why I said 4.5 weeks. It's probably not 4.5 weeks, given that it's the same day anyway. All right. So we'll be here with Julian for a couple more rounds. We'll be right back. Stick around. I can't even tell you what's going to happen, as we just saw a Progenitus versus Uro Omnath in Legacy. So, I don't know. Don't leave.